and welcome to episode 3 of Boost Friend Fridays. Our guest today is not only a fellow girly pop, but also a fellow Latina content creator. She is known in the community for her sparkly vibes and her Disney Lorcana character and deck-themed inspired outfits. You guys know her as Enchanted Kim, so please give a BFF welcome to Kim! Hey Kimmy, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
Well, welcome, Kimmy, and thank you so much for being here. I am very excited, and I know the audience has probably, if they know us, probably assumed we were going to do this, right?
Right, it was a
Glad to
collaboration
have
just
you.
waiting to happen.
Exactly. Now, first thing I always like to do in these episodes is kind of talk about how I got to know you. And in terms of us physically meeting, so I know we knew each other through Love to Lore virtually. We didn't get to meet
Mhm.
physically until Dallas Fort Worth DLC, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that is correct. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. And back then, there were a few of us that were there, and I think it was just kind of a lot of newness and still awkwardness in terms of we don't know each other, but we're part of this community, and how do we find each other and kind of
Yeah.
meet in between
It
the
was
different
so
realms.
awkward to try to be like, okay, in the server being like, okay, I'm at this table. Who wants to meet up? It was a
Yep,
chaotic mess, but it worked out in the end. And
it
I
worked.
met some amazing
Yes.
people that day. And it was also my first DLC ever. And I will always, thank L2L server for that, where if it wasn't for that, I think I would have been super awkward and just in a corner all day being like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm here.
Aw. Well, I mean, I'm glad.
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that, right? And I think that's something to be said about, our journeys, both individually and just kind of shared experiences, is that I don't think a lot of us would have, seen ourselves doing this, right? Like myself being an introvert, just meeting so many new people and putting yourself out there, I think is one of the coolest things of,
Mhm.
what we've done within Disney Lorcana, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean, I say that all the time is on my social media posts. Anytime I do any of those thankful posts, I'm always like, wow, if you had told me, however long ago, so around Thanksgiving I did one, I was like, if you had told me, 2.5 years ago that I'd be so invested in a community because of shiny cardboard and have so many new friends because of shiny cardboard, I wouldn't have believed you. It's just crazy
right.
to think about.
Yes, 100%. And now, as far as just kind of the continued journey and how our involvement last year throughout the DLCs, the first time we met, you were a participant, but throughout a few of the other ones, you actually staffed, right? Even
Hmm.
in the Continentals one, I believe you
Hmm.
staffed.
I did. I was working at
Nice. Tell
Disneyland.
me.
That was cool.
So tell me about that side of it.
It's interesting. Never thought I would be working at DLC, let alone going to DLCs initially when they were announced. And I just happened to got the opportunity to go to DLC Fort Worth, and I was like, let me see how that works. And it was a lot of fun, but I felt like I at the time wasn't a super well-known content creator or anything. I felt like I was still stuck on trying to figure out. It's always a continuous journey. I feel like I still don't even know what I am and what I qualify as. But at the time I wanted to be really competitive. And so I was like, let me go to this DLC. And I think DLC really made me feel you know what, maybe the competitive side of it, in that high stakes of a competitive tournament might not be for me.
Yeah.
It was fun and cool, but I felt like I just don't really have it in me to play test as much as I can to be as good competitively as a lot of people who they go to DLC and they're like, I could win a golden Mickey. And to me, I'm just like, I just want to get tickets for a promo. And so I
Okay.
felt like Melissa, you know this. People watching, I don't know if they know this, but if they follow my social media, I'm sure they know that I have a hair salon, and
Mhm.
I've always just loved helping people. And I think with the beauty industry and what I do, it's a lot of it's a service industry, and I love making people feel good about themselves. And so I felt like working the DLC was like that. And I didn't want to be a judge because I don't have it in me to memorize all those rules. I'm sorry. We just got that new thing announced. What is it? The lore guide?
Or guide.
I was like, I can't guide you through that lore. No, thank you. Those really questions, I can't. I'm sorry. I always joke that I don't like to read. Like any like text box that's just like a paragraph. I was like, I don't know what that is. I'm not playing none of it. 2 sentences or less, please. And so yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna be a judge. But I was like, you know what? Like when I found out that there are opportunities to work at these DLC events that are like, prize wall, or specifically where they put me, which I think was such a good spot specifically for Continentals and DLC Seattle, was Info Point. I felt like that was super ideal for me because I'm one of the first people that you're interacting with. I'm already trying very hard. And like, funny enough, I've always wanted to be a cast member. I just never found it in me to move to either California or Florida to do it. So I was just like, you know what? This is my way in. This is like my temporary cast member pursuit. And it felt like that way. Like I felt like I would just have so much, like growing up I wanted to do like the Disney college program and stuff, so I always like growing up was very good about like when I was guiding people on lines at DLC, I was doing the 2-finger point. I was guiding people that way. Man, all of that to say though, it's just like I love helping people, and it was just so fulfilling afterwards, like DLC people coming up to me was like, oh my gosh, like you helped me so much, like because I feel like sometimes with customer service, like with people that aren't as passionate about helping people, it's very easy to have those poor experiences of you ask for help and you almost feel dumb. And it kind of comes with that like trading card game experience, like especially if you're a newer player with trading card games, it's so easy to be like, I feel dumb to ask like, what does your card do? And so to be someone who could help just like alleviate that feeling and just make you feel like, no, like there are no dumb questions here. Like I am here to help you and make this experience as smooth as possible. Like I love that. So I would always be open to, again, working events as, I don't know what they would be called. I guess lore guides. I guess that's what we got today. They're called lore guides, even if you're a judge or someone who works these events. So I would be open to being a lore guide in future DLCs if the opportunity presented itself.
Fair enough. And thank you so much for that. Like, we know that there was some sort of monetary compensation for being a staff, right? You guys were compensated in some ways. We won't get into that, but it was still more so you volunteered to do it. You took the time to travel, right? And be there for the community. So shout out to everyone who has staffed an event, judged whatever your involvement. Obviously we can't do these events without you guys. So thank you for that. Now, a question for you, having a few DLCs under your belt, both as a participant and a staff, which do you prefer? You can say both, but I want to hear your rationale behind it.
All right. Honestly, it's a coin flip. Like even for DLC Richmond, like it was kind of up in the air if I would apply to be staff. Like I feel like, not saying it was guaranteed that I would have had a spot, but I felt like people like working with me. I had some good recommendations, and like I said, I have multiple experiences working them. But honestly, like it's honestly really tough to choose. I feel like if I could just choose like day of, it would be like a game day decision if I could. It's fun. Like both have their pros and cons, and I feel like it kind of just boils down to what do I want to do. I think honestly for DLC, the one that we have in June, Indianapolis, I think I might work that one just to be like, let me try working at least one this season. But I think it's up in the air. I don't think I would work Continentals. I think I would try really hard to experience it because when I worked Continentals, I did have a bit of FOMO not being able to really like take in that experience because it was so unique. Versus I feel like if DLCs, and I chose not to work DLC Milwaukee because it was the first DLC of the season. And I was like, I want to experience that, especially now that I've grown as like a content creator and community member. It's like, I really just want to hang out with people. It felt like a lot of people say it was a family reunion almost. So I feel like that's the con is when you are staff, you typically just don't really get to hang out with people as much. And if you do, it's not the most professional to just like hang out with your friends while you're also trying to help people at prize wall.
Right.
I think that's the other part too, honestly, is like why there's a chance I might not work that many DLCs in the future, not to like make myself sound super awesome, but this was kind of an issue that I had at DLC Seattle and kind of in Continentals was I had so many people wanting to come up and talk to me and just like want to have conversations. And I was like, I want to have conversations with you too. This is so awesome. I'm so grateful for everyone who wants to say hi. But also to me, I try to be as professional as possible and take this job as like I am here to do a job first. Like that was what I was hired here to
Yes.
do. As much as I
Mhm.
want to just hang out and talk with people, it's like I also have to make sure I'm doing my job. So I think there is that
Yep.
little bit of like, oh, like what do I want to do?
Yeah.
So part of me is just like
Absolutely.
if I was staffing, I think I would have to do something a little bit more behind the scenes
Sure.
sort of
Sure.
thing.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, the pros and
So the
cons is just that.
Okay, fair enough. And so the door's not closed, right? It's
Hmm.
just more
There's some
so the opportunity just
stipulations.
yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Fair
The
enough.
door's
Fair
not
enough.
closed. There's
Okay.
some stipulations, but I truly do adore it. I think it's fun to see the behind the scenes and learn like how things are put together. Like I love putting events together, so that's always really fun to be like, ooh, like how do they do it and how can I take that into a local level?
Yep.
But attending is fun, like not even just competing. I just love being there. I love talking to people. I
Yes.
love the vibes. I
Yep.
love the ability to be like, if I want to compete, I can. I'm able to try to earn prizes. As staff, you can't really do that. So it's like,
Mhm.
ooh, I could like
Mhm.
try to earn a pin for myself or these promos and that sort of thing.
Right.
And obviously the content creator aspect as well as staff. Like again, it's just that professionalism. It's not super professional to create content as staff, but when you're there
Right.
as attendee, like do whatever
Right.
within
Right.
reason.
Exactly. Now you mentioned you like hosting events, and
Uh-huh.
that is certainly something I wanted to bring up because I know you have grew a notoriety with your tea
Yeah.
parties, right? So your
Yeah.
themed parties. Tell me about that. How did they start? What inspired them? Talk to me about some of the themes. Just
Mhm.
gush about it because I really want
Okay,
to
cool. I
know a
love
lot
it.
more.
I get to talk about myself, say less. So, kind of funnily enough, tea parties, I started them honestly because of a selfish reason. I wanted
Oh,
friends. I wanted friends and like people to like hang out and like play Lorcana with because this is like kind of like sad backstory time. Not really. It's not that sad.
no.
Prior to like Disney Lorcana, I just didn't have like a ton of friends. Like I had some friends, but it just was reaching a point in my life, I think like many other people, where you start to grow up and like get into mid 20s or so and people just start to separate. So a lot of like my friend group from like high school just I they're cool. Nothing super bad happened, but it's just like, oh, we went different pathways, all this stuff. And admittedly around the time that I started my first tea party, prior to that, I had broke my foot. So there
Oh.
was also this extra level where I was stuck at home, couldn't go
Mm,
to work because, like I said, I'm a hairstylist and like you're standing, you have to be on your feet to, do hair.
right.
So I was stuck at home, and I think we can talk about it now, but Pixelborn, the original iteration of Pixelborn, was a thing. And
Mhm,
I was
mhm.
also Disney Lorcana was my first ever TCG, so I was brand new to the scene, but I was also really scared to go to leagues as a female player and like a new player because it's just intimidating. So
Yep.
I spent a lot of time on, Pixel. And so I'd broken my foot and I was stuck at home, and so I was playing on Pixel and that's like how I got really good at the game relatively quickly. And then, we had the announcement that was going away. This online unofficial online client was gone, which like I think we all saw it coming at some point.
Yep.
And I was scared because this meant like, dang, if I want to play Disney Lorcana, I have to go to my local game stores,
Yeah.
which, at the time was really, really intimidating. And I was like, I don't really have friends and I don't know what to do. And I just wanted to, but I was also like, I'm sure there are other people that feel the same way as I do. Like other, especially like female players, because, it's Disney. It probably did attract, as we saw now, it did attract a lot of female marginalized players. And so I was just like, maybe they're in the same boat. And it was a lot of back and forth. I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, I saw a local game store try to host for Magic the Gathering, like a marginalized gender and queer night, and like they got a lot of flack for it. So
Mm,
I was like terrified to put out this idea because originally I was like, what if I like just tried to host a bunch of like open my place, like my own home to like people like marginalized gender specifically to come to my place and like let's play Disney Arcana and like connect. And then from there, like we would have almost like the buddy system to go to local game stores.
right.
But because
Right.
of what I saw with this other local game store, I was terrified. Like if you watch Tangled and that scene where she's like scared to get out of the tower and it's like, oh my gosh, I want to do it. And then
Yeah.
she's like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. That was me for like an hour. You can ask my
Wow.
partner. He was like, this is annoying. Just post that you want to do this. So I did. I posted in my local Facebook for Disney Lorcana. Not like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Who's interested? And luckily, a local game store, which is like now like my home store, like that is the store that anytime I host any sort of event, whether it's a tea parties or beyond, they always want to host. And like if you've seen the videos of like those cool troll parties I go to, it's that store. They
Nice.
were like, "Hey, this sounds like an awesome idea, and like we'd love to like host this for you so that you have like a bigger
Oh,
space." And I was like, "Cool. Like sounds awesome." And I like promoted it. I made it like a free event to just try to encourage as many people to go, and it was a success. It was like all Disney princess themed. So many people were open to like donating like decorations and food and like stuff for prizing so I could do like multiple raffles and giveaways. It was so awesome. And I think it proved to be a success because 2 weeks later was Ursula Returns set champs. And there were people from the tea
hmm,
party and they're like, I felt encouraged. Like I would have gone to this game
that's
store for the
awesome.
set champs, but because I met people at the tea party and they said they would be here, like that pushed me to go to my first ever tournament. And I was like, that's so awesome. Like
Yep.
that's all I wanted for this tea party. And I
Yes.
made friends there. Like it was my first time meeting them, and I still talk to them to this day in
Oh,
person.
wow.
So it was great.
Wow.
So that is the story of how I selfishly really wanted friends and ended up making a party, and here we are.
Well, no, I'm glad that, it does only take one person to start a movement or something, because
Hmm.
chances are there are other like-minded people who want to do it too. So, whether it started just for that, it grew into something so much more. And I remember obviously being on the opposite side of the country, just watching like
Hmm.
recaps of this. And then there was somebody from my state even reaching out going, "Hey, who's that girl that did the tea parties?"
Oh my
Right? And then
gosh.
like
It was
we
celebrity.
tagged you. Yep, yep. And it's just so cool to see that you inspired other people to do the same thing and really bring
Hmm.
more camaraderie to people who probably didn't feel comfortable going to their local store. So that's great to hear, and very important to know that there are other options. There are other ways to get involved in playing the game. We don't always have to go to, potentially our local store, although we do encourage, right? Because it does build bigger
Hmm.
communities. But if that's not, where you want to start, what can you do, right? It's been kind of a consistent theme here on
Hmm.
BFF. So love to hear it. And along with these tea parties, there's themes and there's dress ups, right? And everyone just kind of
Yeah.
gets to express themselves, including yourself, right?
Yeah.
Your account and your aesthetic is very much, very girly pop and very princessy, right? So talk to
Hmm.
me, like, have you always been, this enchanting, or is it just kind of something that you're like, hey, I'm gonna steer into this persona as Enchanted Kim? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's so interesting. All of this boils down to the idea of I'm living my best Hannah Montana life right now. So I feel like I've always been very girly pop. Like if you look back on old like childhood photos of me, like I've always loved glitter and sparkle and like the bright colors being as like colorful as possible. And high
Hmm.
school hits and I entered my emo phase. Kind of classic. I'm sure you could tell the winged eyeliner. I have that. Like we're good. I entered my emo phase in high school, and I kind of just stuck with it. Like honestly, I never was a phase mom. It stuck around forever. I still go to concert. And it's
Love
so interesting. I actually had this conversation today where outside of Disney Lorcana in my normal everyday today life, like I am very edgy. Again, like the eyeliner I think exposes it where I, even at work today, my client and I were talking about this, and she's like, "So what do you do outside of work?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm
it.
into like this Disney trading card game." And she's like, "Really? Like, I don't see that from you because we have like My Chemical Romance played in the background. I'm wearing,
I love
this like
that.
pinstripe dress and, a little bit
I
of
love
darker
it.
makeup." And so it's so interesting that like I said, I've always like really loved the colorful and girly aesthetic, but it was almost like buried inside me. And
Fair.
so with Disney Lorcana, I almost treated it as like this is almost like an escape for me. Like not that I don't
Oh,
love
wow.
the emo aesthetic, I love that a lot, but it was almost like, oh,
Yeah.
this could be like a new side of me that I get to like explore and like get to
Yes.
really like show off.
Yes.
Because I think too with my like funnily enough, I don't know if people knew this too. I'm also like influencer is kind of funny, but it's like a full brand and stuff on my hair stuff. So like that's a very distinct aesthetic. And so sometimes it's like because of the social media on there, it's like I don't really think I can like blend the two too much. And so it's kind of nice
Mm,
to have these
mhm.
two separate things where it's like, you know what, if I'm feeling more girly today, like focus more on Lorcana that day. Versus, the
I
indie
love
stuff,
it.
it's like that's more my other stuff. But yeah, so when it came to Disney Lorcana, I'm like, you know what, like I'm gonna really lean into it. And I think especially I leaned into it more almost in like a rebellious way because if you think like I said of
Huh.
Disney or trading card games, they're very male dominated. And I think I
Yes.
just wanted to be really annoyed to like all the people at like local game stores and tournaments where I was just like, you know what? Not that they were ever like horrible, but there's been a few experiences of like disrespect. I'm like, you know what would be really funny is if I do really well at these tournaments and it's someone who's like decked out with like pink eyeshadow and glitter and the cutest outfits. And also just as
Mhm.
like just more representation too that, you because I feel like sometimes because of local game stores and what happens is I've seen it happen, not to say like it happens often, but I feel like sometimes people to try to fit in, specifically like people that typically are more girly, they'll sometimes like almost repress that a little to like, be more like with the bro vibes. And I'm just
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
trying to also add with like my Instagram account to be like, no, it's okay. Like you can be yourself and like be authentically girly and it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it almost was like rebellious and it just kind of came to be and here we are.
I love it. If there's one thing I realized, just kind of going through our own growing pains is especially the older you get, you really don't and shouldn't care about what other people think or
Yes.
say, right? Like,
Yes,
definitely the
100%.
older we get, the less encumbered we are with people's opinion. Now, I'm not saying do unethical things. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that. I'm just saying
don't do that.
be you, right? The
Mhm.
days of hiding who you are, the days of hiding your likes, your dislikes, what you like to do, what you like to represent yourself. These are the days to do it, the moments to do it. The time is now. So if you're
Yes.
looking at this and you're like, I'm kind of done hiding, go for it, right?
Go do
Wear
it.
wear that
Wear whatever.
outfit, do that thing, right? And
100%.
you you bring up a good point, Kimmy, in terms of just we're fully aware that in the trading card game community, it is male dominated, right?
Yes.
So we as women or marginalized genders, we enter a space where oftentimes they're not used to, a
Yes.
woman sitting across from them and she's pulling out her pink sleeves, like yes, you said, and she's in a dress. And, there is just something to be said
Play
about,
mad and stuff.
yes, all of it, right? You name it, and we've got it. And, we're very aware that there is a stereotype. There is a stigma, if for the lack of
Yes.
a better term, when it comes to being perceived as, well, if you're girly, you're not a good player. Right?
100%.
And I know this is not everyone. I know not everyone
Mhm.
thinks this, but there have been moments like that, right? And
Mhm.
I don't even gotta go and dress, all princessy. There have been
Mhm.
moments where there's the passive aggressive comment. You look at me, you see a woman's playing you, and I beat you. And then there goes the passive aggressive comment of, oh, it's only because you went first, or,
Or you got
things like
lucky.
that. You got
Yeah, you got the
lucky. I mean,
the card that you needed. You top decked right. Whatever.
exactly, exactly. Right. And we're going to
Or
go
there
into
it's
it.
your comments against them that's like my deck bricked.
Yes.
I didn't see the cards I
Yes.
needed. Blah blah blah. Or this is my worst
Exactly.
matchup.
Exactly. And we're going to get into your competitive arrow, right? Because
Uh-huh.
I definitely
Right.
want to talk about
Slay.
that. But like I want to hear from you, like, because I know we've talked about it personally, but I think it's
Yes.
cathartic and it helps others, to kind of talk about it publicly and just be like, hey, listen, these situations do happen. We're not
Mhm.
alone. We hope that they don't happen. And hopefully the
Mhm.
more we talk about it, those things the awareness and the instances of them happening decrease, right? So
Mhm.
is there any anecdote or any moment where you're like, hey, yeah, this happened, but this was the outcome, right? Not necessarily looking for gossip, but like we
Mhm.
really want to kind of spread, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is
This
how we were
happens.
feeling, right? This happened.
So like I mentioned already a few times, Disney Lorcana, my first ever TCG. And I didn't start off like super good, only like really recently, teasing it later that we're going to talk more about it.
Mhm.
Only really recently started to be like, I'm competitive and like I'm going to get good. And it was at like a recent, not super, super recent, but just a couple months ago, where, only when I announced that I was going to like start playing competitively, like half a year ago or so, whatever, over the summer, I, started to do good and I started to like make like the top cut for tournaments because I've never done that before in the
Mhm.
2 years that I've been playing. And all the tea with like intentional draws. My opponent offered me an intentional draw, and
Mm.
I was like nervous because I feel like it happens like you kind of touched on earlier. It's like there's almost this perception of like specifically being very like female presenting. There's almost this perception of like you don't know what you're doing. And like I have heard horror stories where sometimes like people will offer like intentional draws to you, and they think that because you don't know better that you'll agree, and then it ends up like actually hurting you. Like the intentional
Correct.
draw benefits them and like knocks
Correct.
you out of top cut.
Yeah.
And it was this whole thing where they offered, and I was just like, hey, like, no offense, because it was someone that I didn't know who offered this. Like, this was
Mm.
at a tournament that I wasn't necessarily like this wasn't my home store. So like there were a couple of people I knew, but it wasn't like it was majority a lot of new people to me. And so this
Sure.
was someone who was new to me, and not saying like, oh, they gave sketchy vibes or anything, but it's like I don't know you and I don't know what your intentions are. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know your previous tournament history. I don't know if you're someone who, is known for doing some sketchy stuff. And so I was like, hey, no offense to you, but would you mind if I like phoned a friend to verify? And so I asked someone at the
Oh,
tournament who luckily was there, and they were there to like help me. And they're like, oh yeah, no, like the
good.
math is good. You're both solid. And I was
Okay.
like, sweet. And so, we had all this time because my friend also like got to do that, and we had this time to like go get food. And like as we're walking to like go get food, he's like, so why'd you have to ask me? Like, that's weird. And I was just like,
Uh-huh.
have you never had where like people like try to take advantage of you? And he's like, no. I was like, must be nice.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. So yeah, luckily I had friends who like could verify for me, but that's like another thing to think about because I've heard multiple horror stories, whether at like small local game store tournaments or we've heard at DLCs where sometimes people will ask you to like concede or intentional draw or all these other things. So it's like, again, if you don't feel comfortable, like you don't have to agree. Like
Yeah.
you can ask a judge or a lore guide as they call it now, or
Yep.
a friend, whatever,
Yep.
to like
Yep.
help yourself.
Well, thank you for sharing, and I think they certainly help, especially if this is someone looking to get into more competitive scenes within their first TCG, right? I
Hmm.
think, and it doesn't necessarily have to fall under like a gender
Right.
divide, right?
It could just be
This
a
could
new
be any.
person.
Right, right. Like the amount of times, speaking of kind of like intentional draws and the numbers around that, the number of times I've seen where people get approached for IDs and the person didn't know any better and then they pull out because they thought
Yeah.
they were safe, right? So my thing is always, hey, unless you are 100% certain, play it out,
Play
right?
it out.
Like
100%.
do
Yeah.
yourself the service, like just crunch numbers, do whatever you can, right? Like make sure you are doing and making the right decision for yourself. Never feel like you have to intentionally draw if you don't want to. There are people that are like, no, I want placement. I'm playing, right? Like I respectfully decline your ID and we're gonna push forward, even if it means kicking myself out. Like if that's the situation, like do it for you. I'm glad that, the more exposure you get to competitive events, we have that knowledge now. We have that backing and understanding. Hey, I have a better idea of what I want to do and what my options are to better my game and to better my rankings there. So
Hmm.
that's always good to know for anyone who's entering their competitive era, right? And
Right.
let's transition there.
Right.
With that being said, like we kind of already teased, obviously both of us kind of started in ways of where it's just kind of social play, but, both kind of diving into competitive things. And you formally announced you've entered your competitive era, right? And I mean,
Mhm.
you've even gone as far as publishing some of your decks, right? For others to just kind of review and potentially net
Mhm.
deck. So let's talk about that. Let's how did you feel in terms of like your prep? Was it kind of like let me dive in? How did that journey start for you?
All right, let me think. Why did I want to start being in my competitive era? Um, I think I'm thinking of like the timeline of it because it really was one of those days where it's like I woke up one day and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be in my competitive era. Let me like do a cute Instagram post. I think well to lead up to it, it was a lot of, and you might recall like back in like the very beginning of summer, end of spring,
Hmm.
I was like feeling really burnt out for a lot of reasons. Like I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in the Disney Lorcana community. I don't know where I stand. Like, I don't know. Things are just weird. I just was like in a very weird mood, and I felt like I was just like really bad at my locals. And I think that's just discouraging. Like, yes, you're there to
Right.
have fun and like meet people, but you have to admit, like
Yeah.
when you lose all the time, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
Especially
It's
like
not.
at tournaments. It just felt like it's like, oh, why am I paying like 20, 30, $40 to go to this tournament to like get, a second to last place, sometimes last
Yep.
place. Like it just was not good and it
Yep.
just wasn't a good feeling. And
Yeah.
I think after enough complaining, people were like, you know what? Like, if you're gonna complain, like at least practice. Like, make this
Fair.
justified. You're not doing anything to
Get
make
get
this
good, right?
justified. Get good, literally. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, you're so mean. But then I'm just like, you know what? Valid. Like, if someone's complaining constantly that they suck, I would probably tell them to like get good, get some practice.
No.
Um,
No.
and so yeah, and I think there was a point of just like ultimate burnout. People were telling me that, and I like was not going to league anymore. It was like set champ season for Arcasia's Island, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
Arcasia's Island, and it was actually my partner who was like, I'm tired of you just being at the house, laying on the couch, and like being sad that you're not doing anything. Like, go socialize. Like. I was like, but it's a tournament, and I'm gonna do bad. And he's like, bring a fun deck. Like, bring a deck where it's like, if you don't do well, like you kind of almost like purposely, like not saying like you purposely suck, but it's like it's a fun deck that like you're purposely trying to have fun. Like you're not
Correct.
there to try to win. And if you remember,
Sure.
Arcasia's was a set that had the glass slipper. And I was like,
Yes, it
as a
did.
Cindy girly, I was like, I'm gonna build like a deck that's all the enchanted cards that I have, as many enchanted princesses. It has the enchanted glass slipper in there, and I was like, I'm gonna bring this deck for fun. And like, literally, the only intention is that I just want to goof off and like
Yep.
see if I can do the glass slipper combo. And I brought that deck, and it was nice. I like got to see people, and I hadn't seen them in a long time, so I was like, oh wow, the people missed me. This was great. And I played games, and people were like being like, oh, like what is this deck? Like this is Amber Steel Song. Like that's what you've always played. And I was like,
Yep.
sure, that's what you think. And then glass slipper combo, get all this lore. And they're just like mind blown. Like I was doing the Mulan shift. They didn't know it was coming. And oddly enough, I was doing good. I was like, wait a second. Like, I didn't even realize until round 4 that I was like, wait, I'm in contention for top 8? Like, that's never happened
Love it.
before, ever in my, like, Lorcana career. And then I ended up making top 8. I got knocked out in top 8, but I, like, that in itself was a huge accomplishment. I was like,
Of
wow,
course.
this is what winning feels like.
There you
But
go.
also just like, wow, like, when I wasn't as stressed, I did really good. And then I felt like that just,
Hmm.
like, brought a lot of this like feeling of like, wow, like this feels really good to play Disney Lorcana again.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I think I ended up like making a social media post of just like, oh, I finally got this like top 8 win, and like this is so exciting. I did this with like a fun deck, and it brought like a lot of like spark back, which was super exciting. And I think people were like, wow, I love that you did this with like a thematic deck. But I think that little bit of like a win was like, I don't know, maybe it created a monster. I was like, ooh, winning, this is nice. um, but it did make me be like, wow, like because it was a deck that I had a lot of practice with, like on my own for fun. Like it was a deck that I played a lot, and I was like, maybe if I really did just like practice and like found a deck I really liked playing,
Yeah.
I would do good. And so
Right.
Reign of Jafar, the next set, I was like, let me just keep playing. And I had like I said, I woke up one day and I was like, I'm just gonna go to this Winnabox tournament and I'm gonna just kind of like cheekily announce that it's my competitive era. Like I kind of did it as a joke, but I was like, we'll see what happens. And then I was at this tournament competing and I was doing really good, but I was also like blown away by the fact that people like actually wanted to help me. These like pro players in the
Wow.
community were like, if you need advice, like let me help you. And I was like, wow, like now I feel
Sounds great.
committed. Like I have to commit to the bit now. And here we are. And then I practiced really hard that set. Um, I won my first ever playmat, or I won a playmat for the first time ever for set champs. But I think more
Whoop, whoop.
importantly, I got the fun fact I was handed the first ever convention playmat in North America, the 2025 convention playmat. I have
That's
video
awesome.
evidence that I was the first ever person they handed it
Nice.
to. And so I was
That's
like bragging
amazing.
rights forever. But yeah, no, Geek Fest was a huge turning point. That was my first like big tournament. It was not a CCQ because it was like right before CCQs were a thing. But it was the first time they had these like convention
Yep,
playmats
yep.
in North America. It was a tournament of like 50 people if I remember right. So like pretty big tournament for me. And a lot of like the very competitive
Yeah,
people in the area. Seattle area is like super competitive,
I
and
bet.
I was doing really good. My goal was just to see like, hey, this was my first ever big tournament since I've like entered my competitive area. Let me see how it goes. But I ended up like doing really good. And Geek Fest was interesting because it was split into 2 days. Like they had multiple rounds of
Hmm.
Swiss, and then top 16 moved on to day two. But then day two was like
Got it.
crazy because the convention. So day two was top 16, but the convention playmat was only for top eight. And I was like, I don't want to fumble the bag
Oof.
and embarrass myself if I get knocked out of top 16 and being like one round close.
Sure, sure.
So day one was like, oh wow, I did really good. And like I have like pretty good placings. And then getting into day two, that whole evening, couldn't sleep, just play tested all night. Deck
Aw.
lists were revealed. So I like had friends build, my opponent for top 16, build their deck
Hmm.
list so I could just like try my best to beat it. Literally, like I was playing against Jeff from Additional Ink at like 5 in the morning because I just like could not sleep.
Wow.
I was like, let's play chess. And until I was like consistently beating it, I was like, let's do it. And it was scary. Like final round of or top 16 for Geek Fest, but top 16 round, I played against someone I knew. Surprisingly, I'd met them at
Hmm.
one event prior. So I was like, oh, okay, this is like some friendly fire. Since I had better positioning, I got to choose
Hmm.
if I was on the play or the draw. I chose to be on the play. Lost
Sure.
my first game.
Okay.
Felt devastated.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was just like, oh shoot, like I should have had that, but I blew it.
Yeah.
Second game, I was on the play again and I got it. And I was like, okay, cool, we're doing it. But now it's like this final game, very intense. Felt like a movie. I ended up winning. It like took like we went to time. We both had like really crazy board states. It was like a total nail biter, but I had like the combos I needed and I pulled it off because they were playing Emerald Steel discard against Amber Steel, and that's a pretty like up in the air match.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, I beat them and I did good. And then we moved on to top eight, and got paired into my worst matchup, Sapphire Ruby, and got knocked out.
Of course.
I think you remember this live stream. I was just like, I'm gonna be on stream, but I already know what I'm being paired into, so maybe don't watch it. But I played my best. And like I said, my main thing was just like, wow, I got the playmat, and this was my first time ever getting this high in a tournament. But what was so important about this was it was the first time I like truly documented every round how I was doing. And it was
Mm.
crazy to see how many people were so like supportive of it. And also to get
Aw.
all the feedback afterwards from people being like, I'm so happy you like showcased it. Because I was being very vulnerable in my like Instagram stories, being like, oh my gosh, guys, I literally feel like I'm about to throw up because I have way too much anxiety over this. Or like, I can't believe I just did this. Or like, this crazy combo that like should have happened, but it did. And I'm so happy. And just being very vulnerable. Like, I am dealing with so much anxiety. So I felt like that was really valuable. And I felt like it was also really important to showcase specifically someone that looks like me, extremely girly pop, to do so well at this tournament. Because even in the video that I have of me getting that playmat, I'm the only one wearing a bow. all of them are wearing like t-shirts and shorts, and I'm here just looking fabulous. And I'm just like, that's so important. Like that representation just matters so
Yeah.
much. And it just kind of also adds into just like why I even started my Enchanted Kim social media was that I felt like there weren't enough people that looked like me. And I was like, I want to showcase that and help people feel like, yes, it's okay to be extremely girly pop and like be part of this community. So yeah,
Yep.
that's my competitive era in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And, I would love for perhaps one day, full top eight, just all girly pops, right? We could dream. Uh,
Right. Someday.
someday,
Someday.
someday. So you
Hopefully soon.
went from first TCG, we're looking for people to play with, started your own tea parties, then, got more comfortable in the content creation and putting yourself out there, started playing your princess decks, realized that they can be competitive, got into a competitive era, started publishing your princess decks, with like some of your spice and themes. And, you did well. And then your next journey, you got an opportunity to be on a casting team. So
Yes.
a lot happened, in a span of
Like a
a year
year
and
and a
within a few
half.
months, right? Yeah, so congrats on that, right?
Thanks.
Casting is very nerve-wracking and it's got its own challenges to it themselves. So let's talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that. Like, how did you prep for it? Was there any advice or anyone you sought advice from? Like, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so if you had told me a year ago that I would be doing casting and be interested in that, I wouldn't have believed you. If you told me like 5 years ago that I would like do public speaking, I wouldn't believe you. As you said in the like little bit of backstory, but as you said in the beginning, like, oh, like I'm Latina. And so both my parents are from Mexico. And so growing up, I spoke primarily Spanish. And so when I started school, I actually had a lot of speech issues. And so I was always that kid that like in class, they had to like pull me out to like give me extra like training and stuff. And then from there, like I was just always really shy throughout,
Right.
all of like middle school, high school, all of that stuff. And
Hmm.
so I would have never believed you if you were like, you're gonna like go on live streams and stuff and talk and like do casting and stuff. I was like, it was crazy. But here we are. So that also just kind of fell into my lap of just like, I very much, especially the last few years, have been the like, what if and like, why not? That's what I tell myself constantly is like, if an opportunity presents itself, like, why not do it? Like, maybe I will like it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with casting was that there was like an open call for a virtual casting job, and I was like, let me do that. Like, I'm gonna try. Why
Mhm.
not? Like, no one else seems to. Like, let me see how that goes. And I reached out to Rebecca Quest specifically. I was just like, hey girly, like you do this, so like you do all of the DLCs. What's the secret spice to do that? And
Uh-huh.
it was very helpful advice of just like, be yourself. Kind of the classic, like, practice. But she gave some good tips of which like I did where I pulled up some like old DLC footage or like old recent like tournaments, specifically
Oh,
recent tournaments. Like I think a PPG one had happened or an Inking
yeah.
tournament had happened. And I had like another
Yeah.
friend just be like, "Hey, we're gonna put that on mute and we're gonna like practice because that was the meta that I was going to be casting for." So I was
Okay.
like, "Oh, this would be like the sort of decks I would see. So let's practice, going back and forth and casting." And that helped a ton. And then other tips like make sure that like you're hydrated, drink plenty of water, you don't want to dry out your throat, all these things.
Right.
And it went pretty good. I had a lot of fun. And then the opportunity randomly presented itself again. We had a CCQ in Tacoma, and like I live in that area. And so I was like, oh, perfect. Like I should throw myself in, to be like, can I do that? And it worked out. And I had so much fun. I had so much fun doing it. Looking back on the footage, I'm like, I have a long way to go because, when I compare myself to like Color and Rebecca and Willow, it's just like, oh, like they're so awesome. And like, I don't think I'm bad, but I'm just like, okay, I'm definitely a newbie and I have so much to do. But I hope I continue. I have another tournament I'm casting in January, so coming up next month.
Nice.
Crazy. Hasn't been
Wow.
officially
Yeah.
announced yet, so yeah, keep tuned for like the social media post. But
Woo!
I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, next month. And hopefully it goes from there.
Congrats.
Maybe one day I'll do, I think aspirations are to do a DLC at some point. That would be a lot of fun.
Well,
But just
you
to keep
never
doing more,
know.
we'll see. You never know.
Fair enough. Exactly. Wow. So you've done it all. It
Kinda,
seems
yeah.
right that yeah. in terms of like TCG coverage, you went from, social play, competitive play, now casting and doing that. Now, what would you say was or has been just things you look forward to and you like about being on the casting side of it?
Yeah. Yeah, and my favorite
Okay.
part though is pushing myself to do something new. Like I said, like public speaking and stuff used to be something that gave me a lot of nerves. So pushing myself to like be on camera, specifically live, because of Instagram, I feel like I do so much content that's like I'm filming, and if I don't like how it looks, I can edit it. But it's like, oh,
Right.
this is live.
Yep.
It's like if I mess up, I have to own those mistakes.
Yep.
So really
Yep.
pushing myself to kind of just like be okay if things like don't work out the way I like think it would, and like also
Right.
just to like be more ready. But I think in a way, casting has also helped me like, something that I really love about casting is that it's kind of almost forced me to be a better competitive player. Like it works in two ways. It's almost like osmosis. Like if you talk about the cards long enough, you kind of know what to look for, and like you're literally
Yep.
watching so much gameplay footage that you're just like, oh wow, like I know what to expect. If I see my opponent do this, I can kind of predict what's gonna happen because I reviewed it so much in casting footage. So I think that's kind of like a fun little thing. It's like, oh, I may have not played in a hot minute, like play tested with some people, but don't snooze. Like I do know what I'm doing because I've done other things that have
Yeah.
helped me study. hmm
Fair enough. Fair enough.
hmm
Nice.
Also, the other thing I really love about casting that I just remembered is like because it is live, you never really know what you're going to expect. Like I remember one casting stream I did where an opponent or like the players for like dice counters or no to determine like
Uh-huh.
who goes first they had a pile of like brown cows like little like brown cow figurines and they like threw it
Huh.
and it was like however many cows were standing was like your number and whoever had like the higher number went first and I'm sure your number two like in DLC is like the whole moment where it's like I think it was with Brent where it's like that whole like he spins the card around and like is it gonna be the goat that wins the game like moments like that is like oh it's so much fun with casting where it's like you just never know what could happen and like these
Yeah.
exciting iconic moments and like are you gonna be the person who
Yeah.
gets to like you know broadcast it like that's so cool so like
Yeah.
optimistically I'm like one of these days I'll have like some crazy iconic moment happen while I'm casting.
It'll happen. It'll happen. Yeah, it's really fun to view it from y'all's eyes. Like I know that we're watching it along with you, but there's something to be said about the excitement and the energy we feed off of you guys as the viewer,
hmm
right? So when you guys bring, and this is for any of the casters, shout out to everyone who's ever casted, whether at the big stage or even locally, right? You're all important, all amazing. It's just something to be said about being able to, kind of relate and enjoy what you guys have to do because you guys make it so seamless. Like all the casters make it so seamless when it comes to like you said, you kind of already know and anticipate what's going to happen, or you sometimes the casters even have better lines than potentially than the person who's being
right.
streamed is aware of, right? And hey, sometimes it's
Been
because
there
you're
done
you're
that.
being streamed, right? So
Right.
sometimes people are very nervous to play on stream, but nonetheless, it's really cool to see what streamers bring, or excuse me, what casters bring to these streams because it's an
hmm
additional piece that as the viewer we get to feed off of. Because I don't know
hmm
about you, but when I watch games, like if no one's commentating, I don't know that I can hold my attention will not hold, right?
right.
So casters are very important for this, whether it's talking about the gameplay, whether it's talking about the cards, whatever the case may be. Any type
hmm
of additional engagement, in my opinion, is very much appreciated. And casting does take a certain level of just gumption and right bravery and there is something to be said about, not everyone is fit for it, but those who have been
hmm
tapped on the shoulder for it, congrats to you guys. It just looks like a lot of
hmm
fun. And it's great to see people who, started off in their first TCG and here they are just in the biggest stage of Disney
hmm
Lorcana, just casting. And it's so fun to see our friends, including yourself, just cast any form of competitive Disney Lorcana. It is so cool to see, right? You're like
hmm
mini celebrities, right? In our books.
Right. That's such a weird concept when I think of like the Disney Lorcana community because I don't know, I feel like there's always this level of like for me anyways, like imposter syndrome and being like I don't know, like sometimes like when a post doesn't do well and you're like, dang, only like 20 people like this. But
Yeah.
then it's like, I don't know, it's always invigorating going to like a DLC. Gosh, like my content matters to so many people. And like I have
Yeah.
like, in a sense, like a mini celebrity. Like this is so weird. That's something, again, like I talked to clients about it. There's like, no way. Like people come up to you and ask for photos. And I was like, I know you're telling me I don't know why, but that's what happens.
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Fair enough.
No, it's so weird. But I mean, also too, like the Lorcana community is just so small still. You know, anyone
Yes.
who creates content in a sense is like you are well known. So
Yes.
it is very exciting. It's such a wholesome thing to be a part of, and I'm always like very grateful to be like, wow, like
Very
I
much.
didn't think I would find this because of shiny cardboard, but here we are.
Exactly. Here we are, absolutely. And God knows where, this journey is going to take us. We are at
I
the
know.
end of the year, which means a whole brand new year of opportunities. And I think that's a good way to kind of close this episode up in terms of, kind of where do we see Enchanted Kim's journey going for 2026? Anything you kind of tease for us?
Yeah, Enchanted Kim's journey. Kind of crazy. I feel like, you dropped earlier my like resume of what I've done. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna top that. That's really hard. Like I was like, I don't know what new adventures I could go on. I mean, is there a in space? Maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. You never
Maybe
know.
that's anything. I don't know. You talk about cruise lines, maybe that's what I do next. Is like
There
Enchanted
you go.
Kim on her first ever Disney cruise, plays Lorcana. Um, I don't know. Lots of things are up in the air. We never know. Like again, even in January of this, I guess this year, 2025.
Hmm.
I couldn't have told
Hmm.
you that I would have predicted all these things happening. Like I said, so many things just kind of happen, and
Yeah.
I like to say yes and be like, what?
Right.
Why not? But I can say for 2026, I am working on a new project. I don't want to say what the title is and stuff is yet because in case it doesn't work, I don't want people to look back and be like, that didn't happen. You're
Hey,
such a liar. So I'm not gonna say the title or anything. But hopefully, optimistically airs in January, February at the latest. But like fingers crossed, like early January. Super excited for that. It's gonna be like my biggest project yet.
sure.
What else do I have planned? A lot of travel. I think that's kind of to be expected now. Is like I'd like to travel and go do things for Disney Lorcana. So DLC Richmond, like fingers crossed if like everything goes okay with flights, because I can't predict the weather. That
Right.
goes okay. I'll be there. And optimistically, the other DLCs, if I can get tickets, a couple other tournaments, like I might be going to Citrus Clash in May.
Nice.
Glimmer Games is happening in March. All of that's on the West Coast, so that's fairly easy for me to get to. But who knows?
Yep.
I've thrown out the idea that I travel to Disney World to go do that Festival of the Arts for those promo cards. Who knows?
I would love to have
I'm
you.
figuring
Would
that,
love to have you.
right? Right? And hopefully two Continentals at Disneyland. And who knows? I'd be down to travel to Europe as well if the opportunity presented itself. So
There you
yeah,
go.
we'll see. We'll see what goes in 2026 beyond just like collaborating with friends, making content, and pushing myself to, new goals. That's what I gotta say for
Fair enough.
2026.
Awesome. Hey, the sky's the limit. I know that we've personally talked about, our goals, right? And what we want to potentially do for the new year, our growth within ourselves and within this game and community. So
Hmm.
all the best to you. Of course, I'm super proud, your journey as a friend,
Thank you.
hence this show, right? Just being able to boost my friends and members of this community is just something that is a real joy for me. So thank you so much again, Kimmy, for being here
Yeah,
for
thanks for
our third
having me.
episode. Absolutely. And just to wrap it up, where can we find you on the socials?
You can find me primarily on enchanted_Kim_ on Instagram. Where else am I? I'm on X. Yeah, I'm on X. Sometimes I like to be funny on there. I'm not as like Instagram, I'm on there all the time. Like good luck not ever seeing a post from me, whether on stories or on the main feed every day. X, I pop in there sometimes. I try to be funny. I try to show off my competitive journey primarily on X. And then I'm all over Discord. I'm all
Yeah,
over different Discord servers as enchanted_Kim. So that is where you can find me online.
perfect. And I'm sure everyone is already following. If they're watching this, if not, definitely give Kimmy a follow as part
Please.
of a fellow Enchanted girly. And again, thank you everyone for watching today's episode of Boost Friend Fridays. We will see you in the next one.